Hey writers, it's Megan coming at you live in All Writers Welcome. I hope some of you blabbers made it over here as well. Um, Today I want to talk about something that is a question people have been asking actively over in the Book Launch Like a Boss Facebook group. And that's, hey, when I'm self-publishing, what should I spend my money on? There are all of these possibilities, right? As soon as you start looking into self-publishing, you realize there's this whole list of things you could be spending money on, and it's really overwhelming. And it makes you go, oh my gosh, do I need one of those and one of those and one of those? And so I wanted just to talk about how you can get the best bang for your buck when you're self-publishing, take some of the pressure off, take some of the panic out of the situation, because there are definitely a lot of things you could spend your money on, but that doesn't mean you need to be spending your money on all of these things when you self-publish. So I'm going to walk you through where to spend money and where you don't need to spend money. I'm going to be giving you some practical tips, and I'm actually going to be loading you up with a lot of links as well so that you can go more in depth on the information I'm going to be giving the overview of in this live. So let's start with why it's so easy to spend more money than you need to. Well, what's true for self-publishing is true for every other part of our lives. We tend to spend more money when we don't know the reason we're buying something. So if you've ever gone to the mechanic or you've ever gone to an electronics store and the salesperson starts telling you all these things you need and you don't really know, isn't that when it's easy to overspend, right? With the mechanic, we kind of do it out of fear. It's like, oh, I don't want my car to break down. So, if you say I need that, I'll take it, even though I don't know what it is. But if you go to buy a set of speakers and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you could get these subwoofers and you could get this over here surround sound. And you're like, oh, they make all these things. Doesn't that mean I need all these things? Hey, Mike, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, the impulse to spend money comes from us not knowing what that money is supposed to be for. And self-published authors, I think, fall prey to this a lot because there's a ton of information online, right? And you look at what other people are doing and you go, oh, so-and-so's hiring an editor and a book cover designer and a formatter and a marketing firm. Do I need to do all of those things? We can kind of get into a comparisonitis challenge when we're self-publishing. All right. So the number one thing you can do to prevent yourself from overspending is to know why you're investing in something. And if there isn't a good, compelling reason to invest in it, don't invest in it. And something I also want you to just keep in mind is that as an author, you are creating products relatively quickly. I know it takes a while to write a book, but compare yourself to like a car manufacturer or a software company. You're coming out with products a lot more quickly than they are, right? That means that you have this like ability to learn and to refine your process with each new product. And it's not going to take you decades. It's going to take you a much shorter time. So the very first book you put out might not have all the things that you eventually want to be able to purchase, but it'll be good enough so you make some royalties so that you can then reinvest. So it's not the end of the world if you can't afford everything right at the start, but just consider you're going to keep growing and keep reinvesting in your author business. Okie doke. The first question that comes up all the time is, do you need to hire a professional formatter? And I will tell you, I did. The first ebook I published, it doesn't even have a physical copy. It was just a digital copy. And I had hired somebody to edit it. And then there was this whole thing about formatting. I did not even take the time to read through on KDP what was involved in formatting. I just freaked out. I was like, formatting? I have no idea. And the editor I was working with, who was fantastic, said, well, I also do formatting. And I said, oh, yes, please, you have to format my book. I have no idea what that means. So I am saying this as somebody who has paid for formatting and got excellent formatting and is really happy with it. You do not need to pay somebody to format your book. Because when I went to publish my second book and actually read through the information that Amazon has available, I went, oh, I can use Microsoft Word. I can add paragraphs here. I can make sure I have, the right spacing. This is all completely doable. So the very first thing you can cut out of your budget is the price of formatting. And in order to format well, what you want to do is go right to the source. Formatting is just what your book is going to look like, how it will be laid out. And this is a place where if you're considering publishing through someplace besides Amazon, I would say make sure if you do that, that they give you all the details of formatting, because Amazon makes it so easy. When you sign up for a Kindle Direct Publishing account, which is free to do, you will have access to this wealth of information. Amazon wants your book to be in the right format, because it looks bad for them if they have books for sale that are all wonky and the writing is in the wrong place and they look terrible. Amazon wants your book to look professional because it makes them look better. It reflects better on them. And they have this whole guide to formatting for your physical book, for your digital book, and they even now have free software you can use to convert your file from Scrivener or from Microsoft Word or the Mac equivalent to the correct format for KDP. And they even have a free add-in, it's really cool, that attaches, it like hooks on to your Microsoft Word, and you can do your formatting in your just regular, when you open up Word on your computer, you get a little toolbar that says Kindle Toolbar. And it shows you how to do everything. And they have these page templates, including like a dedication page and a copyright page. And all you have to do is put in the information for your book. It could not be simpler. And they've done this because, oh, thank you. The Mac equivalent is Pages. Thanks, Dave. They've done this because, again, they want your book to look good. So when you format, if you go straight to the source and you look at the free information that Amazon has available, and I'm not vouching for all the other services out there. I have, lots of my own experience with Amazon. It's really easy to use. And that's a great place to be selling your book anyway. So I would say very first thing to do is cut out of your budget any formatting costs. You do not need to pay somebody to format your book. And if it feels overwhelming, just take it one step at a time. Ella is so smart at hacking systems and figuring out like the easier way to do things. I'm great at figuring out the hard way to do things when it involves technology. Ella's fantastic at figuring out the easy way. And she realized, oh, if I format my book as I am writing it, then I don't have to go back and change the spaces and undo work. Kitty needs attention. Thank you. So there are so many ways to make formatting easier. All right, so that one is I would say a no-brainer. You do not need to pay somebody to format. Here's the first link I was going to share with you. This is how to get all the information about formatting on KDP. Okay, so you can check it out yourself. Also, when you sign up to get your account for KDP, you'll start getting emails from Amazon, not frequently, not a lot, but they really do have good information and tips. So I would say pay attention to those. Okay, so first thing, cross it off your list. I don't need to spend money on formatting. There's even a guide to like how to upload images for those of you who write fantasy, and there's a map you want to include, or you write nonfiction and you need diagrams and all that kind of cool stuff. All right, second thing that so many authors pay for is a book cover. And this one is going to be a personal decision whether you hire somebody or not. Formatting, anybody can do. Book cover, there are some people out there, I am one of them, who really, 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 really stink at design. I mean, really. I mean, just really. And so the question is it going to take like a lot of my time, effort, and energy, and I'm still going to end up with a product that looks pretty crappy? For me, that's the case. For some of you, it will be, okay, it will take some time and energy, but I'll be able to come up with something that looks really good. And for others of you, you'll go, oh, I can design this cover while I'm watching my favorite TV show. So no brainer. But for everybody, the very first thing, again, to know is the purpose, right? That's how you're going to avoid overspending, is to know the why. The why of your book cover, as you have heard Ella say many times, I'm sure, is to create a commercial for your book. It is a marketing tool for your book, nothing else. It is not about making a beautiful piece of artwork. at all. It is simply about marketing your book. All right, so if you know that why, if you know what it's for, then whether you're making the cover yourself or you're hiring somebody else to do it, you are not going to overspend. Ella has some like really sad stories of authors who put out a lot of money and ended up with book covers they couldn't use if they wanted their book to really sell because they didn't serve the right purpose. Okay, so the very first thing you want to do is go check out on our YouTube channel the collection of, there's a whole playlist of videos about how to create your book cover. And Ella walks you through things like the free software you can use, where you can get stock images, and the big important thing, what it should look like and how you know if your book cover is on the right track and if it's really going to be an effective marketing tool. So I'm going to share the link to those playlists. In fact, this is all of our playlists, but you can click on that how to make an ebook cover that sells playlist over on our YouTube channel. And if you love us, please subscribe. Please, oh please. We're having a little mini competition just against ourselves of how many subscribers can we get? So, find out what a good book cover looks like. That is your very, very first assignment. Do not even interview a book designer until you have learned what a great book cover is for. Okay, so then let's talk again about if you are going to hire somebody, because this is a place where for some of us it does make sense to hire out. I really struggle with design. For me, it takes a long, long time, a lot of energy, and a lot of frustration, and I still end up with something that does not look good. And so for me, it is worth it. And it hasn't been in my budget for my book so far, so it is worth it, but it hasn't been in the budget, and I've done it anyway. But it is a place where you'll go, okay, I have to make this decision for myself. If it's worth it, I'm going to go for it, but I'm gonna get informed first. So here's how you can save money if you do decide to hire somebody. Ask your friends. Do you have a designer friend? Do you have somebody who knows about design? In that case, share, Ella's great videos about book covers and say, hey, can you do something with this information? You don't have to have somebody who specializes in book covers. It could be somebody who's just really good at graphic design and composition and things like that. And then, share the information. Hey, I have these great videos about how to make a book cover. Can you apply that? I'll trade you. Whatever it is, I'll write a story for your children, whatever your skill is, you can trade. So ask your friends. Use the Canva template. Canva is a free service. You're probably using it already to make cool things for your author Facebook page. Get on Canva, use their ebook template so that you're spending less time and effort. Or again, if you're asking a friend to design it, you're directing that person to something that works. If you are hooked into all the information from Amazon, from Kindle Direct Publishing, they will tell you the size and the specs and everything for a physical book cover. And here's why that's good to know. If you want to hire somebody, if you can't get a friend to do it and you want to hire somebody, provide all the information you can. Because think about the cost difference based on time and energy. If you say, can you please make me a book cover, versus can you please design me a cover that's this, this tall by this wide, or is this many pixels, has a picture of a girl who's reading a book. I want it to be a blue color theme, and I want a sans serif font and the title at the top, right? Like if you provide all of that background information, you are taking so much less of the designer's time. And then, get on Fiverr, look for somebody who, is reasonably priced and can do something that's better than what you could do. But do yourself a favor and try it out for yourself first, because you might be surprised with how easy it is to design once you know Ella's strategies for it, the things your cover has to include, and also the mistakes that you want to make sure you don't make when you find, a great stock image, and when you use the Canva templates. Okay, so for book cover, it's going to be something you have to decide. You may be able to save a ton of money here by designing your cover yourself or having a friend do it. But even if you hire somebody, Get all the information first so that your request for the book cover has all these specific checkpoints, and you are not going to have the frustration of, you ask for a cover and somebody gives it back and you realize that's not going to sell for your genre. It's not the right look. You're going to have something that you know works. So that's always better, right? If you're spending money on it, you want to make sure it's the right thing and it works. All right. Third big place where self-published authors spend a lot of money is on editors. Oof, editors, big topic. Okay, so again, remember our theme is we overspend when we don't know what something's for. So your very first job is to ask, well, why am I hiring an editor? And there are different kinds of editors. There are developmental editors who will work with your story and will help you restructure it and make sure your characters have believable arcs and make sure that the order of your chapters is compelling and makes sense. And that's a really intensive experience. And so obviously it costs more money because that's somebody who's helping you dig into your story and remold it. You know, it's like getting your house remodeled. That's a big deal, right? It's going to cost a lot of money. So if you know that's what you need, great. But it might be that the kind of editor you're looking for is a line editor, and a line editor is going to be like the coat of paint, the last coat of paint on the house. Everything else is finished, and you just need somebody to come through and put the polish on. And a line editor, even among line editors, you're going to find a variety. Some line editors will just go through and correct actual mistakes in, if you have typos, if you have mechanical errors, if you have like too many spaces or an extra period or something like that, or that's not how to use an ellipse. A line editor will correct that. And some line editors will also help you with style, and so they'll go, oh, this sentence is kind of awkward, and if you rearrange it like this, that would be better. So there's this whole range. So when it comes to an editor, you have to get really clear on what you want. You have to know for sure, hey, is my writing mostly, solid? Is my story solid and I really just need somebody to come through and do that final coat of paint, that final polish? Or is my story kind of a mess and it's really jumbled up and I need some major help? So I'm checking my notes here. You're also going to consider not just where your story is, but what kind of writing is in your story, because some stories and storytellers can get away with less editing. If you write in a kind of actiony, I know, great. Speaking of editors, who's editing me? But if you write in a kind of actiony tone, you're not going to have to spend as much time looking at your style and making sure that your sentences are just so, and that your word choice is just so. On the other hand, if you write in a very lyrical style, if you paint a lot of pictures with your words, that takes, a little bit more work to smooth things out and to give a nice finish. So your writing style is really going to come into play here. The tone of your book, your genre, and even your skill as a writer. If you have been writing for a very long time and it's second nature and you feel like you've got a lot of the rules of style and grammar ingrained, you might not need the outside editor as much as somebody who's newer to writing or who's a fantastic storyteller but maybe struggles with some of the language. There are definitely a lot of great storytellers out there who are a little intimidated about, the rules of grammar, and they go, oof, I just never remember, where do I use the comma? Where do I use the exclamation point? Things like that. So there's a lot of personal kind of questioning that goes into it, like with the book cover. Is this something that I think I can do for myself? So when you get to this point and you've answered, what do I need? Do I need somebody to go through and do like an overhaul of my story? Or do I just need somebody to come in and put some polish on, right? That's your very first goal, is what would I want from this person? Once you figure that out, see how you can save some money. Very first thing, again, ask a friend. Who are the English majors in your life? See if you can trade for something. Hey, if you go over my book and make sure I don't have, if you proofread it for me, I'll whatever, I'll cook you meals for a month. But ask the people you know. Most of us are so connected on social media now that our networks are immense. And so you might not know somebody directly, but maybe a friend of yours knows somebody. It's worth asking. It really is. And if you do have somebody who's willing to edit for you and you're not able to pay that person, it's a friend or a friend of a friend, put that person in your acknowledgement section. Give that person some good recognition. I'm sure that would mean a lot and would go a long way to getting somebody to say yes. All right, another way you can get some editing for your story without paying an editor is if you're in a writing critique group, and if you if you share stories with somebody else and you give one another feedback. When you have made the decision, yes, I definitely do want to hire an editor. It's really something I know I need. I need help with my writing. Before you interview an editor, before you send it out to anybody, you need to revise, and then you need to revise again, and then you need to revise yet again. Because if you send an unrevised or unpolished manuscript to an editor, you're paying for a ton of that editor's time. Right? The less you polish it, the more your editor will have to dig in and work on it. So make sure it is really, really at the point of being as good as you can make it. When you hand it off, you don't want to hand it off with a feeling of, I'm just so tired of working on this, Eric, can you just fix this? You want to hand it off going, I have made this as good as I possibly can, but I am not a professional editor. I need your help to get, to spot the things I can't spot. That's the point. That's the attitude with which you should be handing it off. Okay. And if you do hire somebody, get a sample of that person's work. An editor should be willing to give you a certain amount of a certain number of words, and it might be anywhere from 1,000 to 2,500 that they will edit as a sample. And this is hugely important because you want to make sure it's what you were looking for, right? It's really important to have good communication with your editor, but things can still get misinterpreted. And so if you get it back and instead of just having the typos corrected and the extra punctuation taken out and the grammar corrected, you're seeing the editor has made all kinds of suggestions for take this sentence out and put it over here and add in something major here, that editor is going to be doing more work than you want to pay her for. And that's not a good matchup. So that free sample is about you seeing, is this what you were actually expecting? Is this something that you want and can pay for, right? Because you're also kind of getting a sense of how much time it will take. And editors charge differently. Some will charge by the hour and some will charge by the word. So what I really recommend is checking out what different types of editors do. We love editors at All Writers Welcome. We're always on the lookout for talented editors because we know what a difference it makes to authors to work with somebody who's been recommended and did not have that feeling of, oh my gosh, I don't know how to even begin to find somebody. So I'm going to share 2 links in the comments. One is an interview with a developmental editor, Carol Vaughn, who walks you through what developmental editing is all about and what she does with authors, what that process looks like. And you'll really get a much better sense from watching that interview what it would be like. And you go, oh, okay, that sounds like something I desperately need for my book. Or, oh no, I think I could skip that. My story structure is good. It's just the polished stuff. And I'm also sharing an interview we did with Juliet Bresler, who does line editing, and she does some feedback on story as well. But you would have the option, you would have the range, right? So when you would speak with either of these editors, you would find out what does you would already know what you want for your story because you've already figured out what is this for, and then you would get the rate for that particular thing. So, and these are just 2 people who happen to be also authors, who happen to be in All Writers Welcome, who happen to be lovely human beings that we've spoken with. These are just 2 of the gajillions of editors out there, but get a start by watching their interviews so you see What does that kind of editor do? What could I expect when I work with an editor? Start to inform yourself, start to really get knowledge. And here is something else to think about with editing. A lot of authors squeak by in their first, published work, or maybe their first couple published works, without getting editors. And it's something you could do if you have strong writing chops, if you really know what you're doing when it comes to style and grammar and mechanics. You would definitely still want somebody else to proofread, right? That may be where you would ask a friend, or if you're working one-on-one with a writing coach, that's something you can get as well. But deciding you need an editor is something you have to look at budget-wise, because it may be that it's not in the budget for your very first book, and that's okay. And so I want to leave you with this thought about how to do a workaround. If you can't afford to hire an editor to go through your whole book and help you with the story structure and make sure your characters are on track, the workaround is to look for the most important places and get those some attention. And those most important places are going to be your very first chapter, because that's when readers are deciding if they're going to keep reading, and then your climax, because that's when they're deciding if they got the story that was promised in that fantastic first chapter. So if you're like, I just can't afford to do the whole deal, if you can get somebody to look at your first chapter and your climax, then you'll be in much better shape than if you don't have anybody look at it at all. All right. So there are a lot of decisions to make here, right? We talked about formatting. You definitely don't need to hire somebody to format your book. You can absolutely format your book, even if you're not really a tech person. If you can use Microsoft Word, you can format your book, definitely. All right, we talked about book covers. That's a decision you have to make based on whether you will get a result that you like if you spend a lot of time and energy. For me, I spend a lot of time and effort and energy, and the results still don't look good. So it's not a good return on my investment of time and energy. I'd be better off having somebody else do it. But there's all that information. I posted the links to our YouTube channel, and you can watch all the videos about making book covers so that you inform yourself, you know what your book cover is for. And then when it comes to an editor, it may not be realistic for you to hire an editor for your book to go through and do the first thing. And the workarounds are get somebody to just look at your first chapter and your climax. Make sure that you yourself have revised a ton. Think about joining a writing critique group or starting a writing critique group so that you have at least feedback. You should not be the only person who has read your book before you publish. It's really important for other people to have read it, but they might not be people you pay. They may be friends, they may be other writers. You're in a writing critique group. And that will, make sure you have good content and good story. And then if you can finagle a friend into proofreading for you, then that will take it over the top. So there's one more place that authors spend money on that I haven't mentioned so far, and that is marketing. And this is a very, very, very tricky one, because you could easily just pay somebody to market your book, and you can buy space on somebody else's newsletter, you can hire a PR firm, right? There are all of these kind of pay to play ways to market. But the best bang for your buck when it comes to marketing is to invest in learning how to do it yourself. Because when you pay to get on a list, an email list, it's that one book that's getting promoted. If you pay a PR firm, it's that one book and that one launch or whatever this one event is. And when you invest in learning how to market organically, you get to use that on every book you write. So if you're thinking about investing money in your self-publishing career, the best places you can do it are those places where it's going to provide a lasting impact on your career as an author. And that's really in getting the knowledge and getting the help and the feedback to do it. And that's why for the month of December, we've been telling you guys all about Book Launch Like a Boss Bootcamp. which starts up the second week of January. And it's really all about giving you the knowledge you need so you can launch your book, not just this time, but the next time and the next time, and build the chops and get the skills so that you know exactly the steps to take. And also, by taking those steps in Book Launch Like a Boss Bootcamp, you will be creating connections and creating an author network that lasts far beyond whatever book you're launching right now. You're actually building you're investing in building and building your brand as an author, as opposed to paying for one book to get in front of people. This is about using strategies that help you as the author get out in front of lots of people and build organic connections that help you really see the growth you want. So I invite you to learn more about Book Launch Like a Boss Bootcamp, and to learn how you can spend your money by investing in your author career, as opposed to just paying for one thing over here and one thing over there. In the bootcamp, we have a whole module where we look at your first chapter and we ramp it up and get it into high gear. And we have a whole module where we look at your climax and we do the same thing, and we connect your story arc so that readers really are getting what they hoped for. And if you remember when I talked about editing, that was one of the workarounds. That was one of the hacks I suggested, is instead of paying for somebody to go through your entire story structure and rework it, you can look at just focusing on those places that will have the biggest impact, the first chapter and then that climax. And that's one of the things that you will get in Book Launch Like a Boss Bootcamp. You'll see how you can just take those key parts and turn up the volume on them. And that will be a way of, investing in this current book while you're also investing in all your books to come, because then you're going to have that skill and that strategy. So I'm going to put a link to Bootcamp in the comments here, and we are doing a live webinar coming up soon. There is a place where you can sign up to get the date and time for that. So if Bootcamp is looking like what you know you need to take your book to the next level, to really launch it and to make money from your book so that you can reinvest it and look at, next time you'll get the fancy cover designer, next time you'll get the, you'll be able to pay for editing. You want to be able to invest heavily in your book career and in all of these services. And eventually then you'll go, yeah, I can pay for somebody to format my book because my time is worth more writing, right? Eventually you'll get to that point. But the very first step is investing wisely in your author craft. And that means putting money in the places where it's going to go the farthest, where you're going to get that knowledge, get that support, get that feedback, make sure you're doing it correctly, and not just out there spending it wildly. We want you guys to have great success in your author careers. So again, we've got a link to too many B's, Book Launch Like a Boss Bootcamp in the comments of this, and there's a place to sign up so that you can find out when our next live webinar is. And there are also just links right on that page where you can sign up to chat with me or chat with Ella if you've been hearing about the bootcamp and you just have some questions and you want to know more about it. All right, look forward to chatting with you all soon, and happy writing.